Well, good morning, Southern Oregon, and welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So glad you could join us today. I'm Alice Lema. I'm a broker here in John L. Scott Real Estate in Southern Oregon and your host of the show. Today, we're excited to welcome back Guy Giles from Mutual of Omaha Mortgage. He comes on the show every month and brings us up to speed about what's going on with mortgages, money, interest rates, and such. And boy, did we have another big week here nationally with the interest rates. The Federal Reserve Bank did raise the rates again this week, 0.75%, which is quite a hefty increase. But you know what? Don't want to say we're sort of getting used to it, but we're sort of getting used to it. And I'm proud of our little Southern Oregon housing market to continue to find ways to move forward with their purchases and sales. With that in mind, let's talk about the stats for the week. This week, the days on market in Jackson County were 48. Josephine County averaged 52 days on market. Klamath Falls averaging 48 days on market. Why are these numbers important? Because a normal neutral market, as you might remember, is 120 days to 180 days on average to sell a residential property. So we are hovering right around 2 months for all three counties. That's still more buyers than sellers, but you have to dive down deep and look at the different price points, because some of the price points are super competitive. Like if they're under $400,000 and much over $500,000 or $600,000 gets really soggy and more of a buyer's market. But when you average everything together, we still have about 2 months of supply in all three counties. I did also want to take a quick minute to point out that we still have appreciation so far this year. Jackson County has 5% appreciation as of this week. Josephine County has 6% appreciation, and Klamath County has 10% appreciation. We track this every week, and it's telling us that we still have a nice sustainable appreciation in all three of our markets, which is healthy and sustainable. And it means that buyers are not having to arm wrestle so hard to get a property, and they're not having to overpay. So anybody who was trying to buy and sell, 6 months, a year ago, it was a much more frenzied market, as Lennox Scott likes to say. Very good definition of what we were experiencing. And now it's slowing down, which was the Federal Reserve Bank's intention. But we're still doing okay. We still have a nice, sustainable appreciation. Okay. So with that in mind, let's take a quick break and get on with our show. Well, hey there, Southern Oregon. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show. Gosh, I'm so glad you could join us again today. We have Guy Giles with Mutual Omaha Mortgage. He is our in-house lender and a sponsor of the show. He comes on every month to kind of bring us up to speed. Good grief. Guy, welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really fun keeping everybody up to speed when it's changing like 3 times a day. So it's really volatile right now. We almost broke through this week to where we're getting a really good trend for some lower rates, and it's just barely been getting beat back, the last few days. So I guess we'll know how soon the rates will drop one of these days soon. I'm still anticipating sometime maybe first quarter, second quarter next year, but I don't know for sure. But that's kind of the best, just kind of the best I can guess on that.
In our crystal ball. So I have a question for you, because all the buyers and sellers are concerned about the interest rate increases. We're just all so surprised they did it again. But what if the rates don't go down? I mean, I know a lot of us think they're going to, but what if they don't? Does that mean the prices stabilize? If the rates do go down again, does that mean the prices go up? What do you think the reactions are going to be?
Well, I think you just hit either one of them on the head. I mean, if something's got to give right now, I think the regular person is just kind of priced out of the market. So, we either need some lower rates or we need housing to come down. I mean, that's really the only thing. You can only give so much when you have your gas prices up and just kind of everything else in life going on. Energy prices, God knows what that's going to look like this winter. I won't get political since I never do. So I'll just keep my mouth shut.
And we appreciate that. Thank you.
But I don't know, everybody's in kind of a tough position. There is a lot going on right now. I think the Fed was a little behind the curve trying to get some of this stuff under control, but I think they're doing what they, have to do at this point finally. Another 3 quarters this last week, and hopefully they'll start tapering. We should start seeing a little bit of just backing off from them, and then maybe once it calms down a little bit, if history is any kind of indicator, then we should maybe be looking at what they call quantitative easing, kind of like what they did after the '08. I remember rates dropped a couple of percentage points almost overnight, and day before Thanksgiving, I think I locked 30 loans that day. I just had people kind of ready to go, and I'm just kind of setting it up for that whole thing. So I don't know how fast, I don't know exactly when, but I do really believe that we will see a dip in rates.
Okay. So with the scenario that we're discussing right now, is if the rates start going back down in 2023, 2024, then a lot of folks that purchased right now would be able to refinance into a lower interest rate. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I've been doing some math on this because I wasn't completely sold on, one thing that's hot out there right now is doing 2-1 buy downs where.
Can you tell people what that is?
So essentially what you're doing is, maybe asking the seller, because the sellers, I think you can finally feel like as bad as everything is with the rates right now, one thing you are in charge of a little bit is the transaction. I mean, it definitely feels a lot more like a buyer is in the driver's seat at this point. So, not 100%, but, not that long ago, we were going up 20, 30% outbidding everybody. And, if you can look at it like this, you're not going to have to get into a bidding war, but you can actually go in and maybe ask for a little bit of closing costs. And that might translate to what I was talking about, like a 2-1 buy down, where you're essentially just kind of having the seller prepay what interest you would pay. So it's a little bit of a shell game, but it might help some people get into a house a little bit more comfortably right now. As long as you have, 5% down, when you go to refinance, there's no what we call LLPAs or pricing hits for doing a no cash out refinance. So
that's good.
Yeah, and that was just some of the stuff I wanted to check on and do some pricing before I really talked about it too much. So it might be a pretty good option to get people in. Doing a little bit of math. So, you might ask the seller to pay $8,000, and so instead of having, a 6.5% rate, the first year you have a 5.5 or 4.5% rate. Pardon me. That's the 2-1 buy down. The second year it would be down by 1 percentage point. I would want people to really think about this and, make sure that it was something, if something crazy happened and you were not able to refinance, you'd want to be prepared to have that higher payment. But I really do believe in the next couple of years, I have no crystal ball, but rates should come down and hopefully you can refinance into something a little bit more reasonable. And it actually could put you in a lot better position than outbidding somebody by $30,000, $40,000, and just not even getting the house that you want, just one that you could get an accepted offer on, which really what was happening a year ago. So I can't say higher rates are great for the consumer, but in this instance, I think, that we have a few different tools that we can look at to maybe just get you in the house and then hopefully look at something a little bit better down the road. I'm a huge proponent of getting somebody in the right loan the first time. That's why I was a little reluctant with this program at first. But now that I'm doing the math and looking at what it would take to refinance and how it would impact you, maybe 100% financing one might not be the best, option as far as being able to do that. But if you have a little bit of a down payment, that could come from your parents, family members, things like that. Grants, be careful a little bit of the grants because sometimes they have like a 5-year buyback. And so you can't really sell or do some different things within a few years on those. So keep your eyes out. But this might be a tool that could get you in a house. And this one scenario that I ran that was a $350,000 loan amount, it would save you about $450 a month for the first year.
What?
And then
Wow. That's
Yeah.
huge.
And now keep in mind, you're still qualifying like it's the higher payment. We're really not trying to get into real stupid lending again, like we did before. But, then that gives you 12 months, hopefully, to, either get a raise at work or, find some lower rates. And again, that's why I say, you always want to expect the worst, but then, and conventional wisdom is rates will go down at some point in the near future. So hopefully, people will want you to make 6 monthly payments. After that 6th payment is up, it's okay to do it. And we're actually offering for anybody that's doing loans with us, if they've made that 6th payment, we won't charge them any bank fees for a refinance.
Oh, that's
when they go to do
awesome.
that. So,
That's
we
awesome.
understand everybody's in a tough spot, and it puts us in a tough spot. Frankly, we're not, just the nicest guys in town, but at the same time, we want to work together. You guys get into a house and, obviously we earn a living doing these. So after the first year, so if you do that 2-1 buy down, say the rate is 6.5%, you'd be paying 4.5% for the first year. The second year would go up to 5.5%. And so you'd save about $230 a month instead of the $450 a month. And at the end of that third year, or the beginning of the third year, then it would go up to your regular payment. So like I said, it's a conversation that you really want to have, not just, hey, this looks really good and shiny right up front. Have a real conversation, hopefully with me, but with your loan officer if not, and kind of talk about that. I have another thing that I've actually been talking to people a lot about lately is we do, and you're gonna love me or hate me when I say this, reverse mortgages. And I've always been a huge, terrible, don't do it. It's expensive to get into. But I've had some people that we've really helped getting in reverse mortgages, some people that were able to stay in their house. And I've never been thanked before, like I have been when somebody actually closes one of those.
Well,
But
yeah, they can be amazing. They're not for everybody, but when it's the
no.
right fit, wow.
Well, and I've had a lot of people come up here. I have one gal from Eugene that, she'll sell her house and walk away with about $350,000. And she's old enough to do a reverse mortgage. So she wants to pay cash. She really can't afford, a big payment. She owns her house there, but she wants to be closer to her kids. So if we do this HECM, which is it's a version of that loan, she could potentially buy a $700,000 house, still not have a payment. So her goals, she's in the house of her dreams, or just because houses went up a little bit, she's in a little bit more of an expensive house, but the net to her is the same. Her family would still have the equity that's left in the house when she passes away. And it's pretty conservative when it comes to, you're not really going to go in the hole like a negative amortization loan. You will go in the hole a little bit, but you're not going to get underwater where, you're not leaving anything to the kids at all. And then you just could have a nice house for the rest of your life where you're only paying the tax and insurance on it.
Yeah, we're talking about reverse mortgages right now with Giles Mutual Omaha Mortgage. And there's a lot of emotion about reverse mortgages. But in my experience, when you have the right fit, just like you were talking about, what a relief it is to the person who gets to stay in the house. They don't have to write that check anymore.
No, it's been really strange. Like I said, I've never been thanked like I was on those
Oh,
ones that
it
I
makes
did.
such a difference for people. It really, really does. Yeah.
And if it's not the right move, we'll have that conversation too. I'm
Yeah.
happy to
Well,
have your family in here when we're talking, and
right.
everybody in
Exactly.
on the thing, because it does impact everybody in the family. But like I said, if you come in and you're only walking away with $250,000 out of your house, where are you going to actually buy where you can be comfortable? So if you do this purchase loan and use that for the purchase loan, you could get double the house. And, it's going to depend on your age, and there are variables. Like I said, it is pretty conservative in a lot of ways, but you will be able to realize the appreciation on the house, and that should offset anything that you're going negative as far as not making your payment. So it's just a good conversation to have. And I think it'll get
It
a lot of
really
people
is,
in.
because sometimes people are really stressed out about their end of life choices or lack of choices. And we did one of these for my mom, and it was a little bit of an uphill conversation with the rest of the family. And in fact, it was kind of like what you said, they didn't really understand the benefit, but boy, the more we looked into it, the better it got. And now she's okay. Excuse me, she's not going to lose her house. And if it's making that kind of a difference in an elder's life and they're able to stay in their home, I think reverse mortgages can be super helpful. I'm really, really glad you guys are looking into those more.
Yeah. Beth and I are originating those. So, I mean, it's not one of those loans that you just walk in and say, I want a 30-year fix. They're usually longer conversations. You really want people to be comfortable with them. And like you said, it's not for everybody, but for the right people, I'm definitely ready to have conversations about those.
And doesn't the buyer have to go through some kind of reverse mortgage counseling? I mean,
yeah, you're very well educated before you ever get into a reverse mortgage. So, they are a little more expensive to get into up front. It doesn't mean you're paying that out of your pocket, but so there are a few things to talk about, but you're, again, really educated by the time you get into one of these loans.
Yeah. We're talking to Guy Giles, Mutual of Omaha Mortgage. He comes and joins us the first week of every month to try to bring us up to speed on all the crazy stuff that's going on in the world. So we appreciate you. We're going to take a quick break. We're brought to you by Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, Guy Giles, Mutual of Omaha Mortgage, and John L. Scott, Ashland, Medford. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. Alice Lema here, broker John L. Scott, beautiful Southern Oregon, talking to Guy Giles, a Mutual Omaha Mortgage. So glad to have you back, Guy.
Well, I'm glad to be here. It feels like winter finally. Yay.
I know, right? Yeah, so here we are. Thanksgiving is coming, and the market is not only changing, but accommodating some of the interest rate increase stress. I've been seeing a lot more people taking contingent offers, writing contingent offers, contingent with another house to sell, and getting them accepted and getting them closed.
Yeah. I think I'm starting to see that too. We have kind of a bridge loan, to where it's called buy now, sell later.
Let's talk about that.
Well, it's funny because it's a program that we just started, so I'm still getting the literature on it right now. But basically, we'll go up to like a 60% debt to income ratio. So you're almost you are kind of qualifying for both. But for this one instance, it's a guy that really doesn't owe much on his house, and we're qualifying him. And then what we'll do is we'll just encumber both properties, and then we'll release the one. Once the house sells, pay that thing off, and then you're just into your new loan there. So
that's cool. So how much time do you give people to sell their house?
There's not really a time limit on it.
Really?
I mean, yeah, there's a goal, obviously you want to do it. Yeah. But I will definitely be up to speed on that. But the funniest part is on both of them that I started to do with people, both of them said, you know what, let's just shoot for a contingent offer first. And that's actually what made me think of it. So
because the market's different, they felt a little braver to try that.
Yeah. And I thought, oh man, I got this killer program. And, but really if they'll accept one of those, then you're not getting stuck with two houses for a little while or worried about trying to, I guess you wouldn't have to worry about trying to rent the thing out if you got it stuck. But we do have an option, both ways as far as that goes. So
that's really good. And do you think the market conditions are changing and accommodating those contingent transactions because the sellers are understanding that we're in a different kind of market now? Or is it just because the end of the summer and everybody's scared to not sell their house? We sell houses all winter long, but people sometimes are nervous.
Some people, if it feels like, hey, I'm going into the Christmas season, I'm not going to disrupt my whole life during this. But as far as houses selling and people, still moving, they're doing it. They're definitely feeling a little bit more comfortable about giving up a little bit on the other end, just because they are a little scared. It wasn't that long ago that you could just put your house on the market and within a week you had a whole bunch of offers on the thing and for whatever you wanted. And I think that the sellers are definitely not, well, I said driver's seat earlier. They're not quite driving anymore.
Yeah, but that's okay. Isn't it nice to have a little bit of a normal market so that the buyers and sellers have time to contemplate their offers and their transaction terms?
Yes. Yeah, it's a lot better. And especially considering like my side, that's primarily what I work with is the buyers. So it's nice to have kind of my people, I guess, spoken for a little bit at this point, because they really haven't had much say in anything in a long, long time, other
Yeah.
than, getting a low rate, which was a nice bonus. There's no doubt about
Hmm.
that. But, I don't know why there has to be such big losers and winners and these big swings as far as these go. Someone needs to sell a house and someone needs to buy one. And it's just math at that point. Does it make sense? Is it the right house? Is it the one
Hmm.
that you want? And that's why it's good to work with somebody like you rather than I'm just going to go out and try to do this on my own or sell my house on my own. There's just things that you learn over the years, as far as everything from schools to, are you on the north side of the hill and are you going to see the sunshine for, well, the 20
Ever.
years I lived, yeah, on the north side of the hill. I bought it in, summer and everything felt great. But somebody didn't have those conversations with me. And
Yeah.
that's why it's nice for someone to call you.
So earlier you were talking about, and maybe it was a little bit of a joke, but you were saying the rates are changing like several times a day or every day. Can we understand the volatility that you've seen the last few weeks?
Wow. Well, I'm unfortunately not tech savvy enough to, I'd have to just point my camera at my computer or something to show you what
But
I'm
just
talking
watching the
about.
last few weeks
But
of the
yeah,
variety.
it's crazy. And what we deal with on our side is, if the Fed raises rates or lowers rates, it does not directly affect mortgages. The Fed has supposed to be two jobs: employment and inflation. They've only focused on inflation lately. Sadly, we've had some good job numbers come out, but a lot of it has to do with how many jobs there are. And yes, there are more jobs. I think we've added 279,000 or something this month. But that said, if you're working 3 part-time jobs, you might say, yeah, we've created a whole lot of jobs, but it's not quite as healthy. So they're trying to get the Fed to focus a little bit more on the job side as they're raising the rates, because it's just kind of a double thing. But we're a little different, traded on the mortgage-backed securities. We're looking at 30 years sometimes. Will somebody have a loan for 30 years? Probably not. But realistically, we're definitely not looking at, hey, the Fed's going to, start lowering rates once inflation gets under control. People will probably be in them a little bit longer than that. So no, we've had wild swings, and generally when people are putting up money that could potentially be for years or decades, they're going to be a little bit more cautious as far as that goes. So, people are sticking in their loans a lot longer right now, because if you have a 2.7% rate, why would you, that's cheap money. It's hard to get rid of that. So I think we're seeing that a little bit also, as far as, not everybody moving around like they did when I got into business. I think it was 2 to 4 years that was the average people were in a house.
Well, it's longer
And
than that now.
oh gosh, yeah, I can't
Yeah.
even imagine,
Yeah.
what it is. But
So when people are talking about the low rate and not wanting to sell their house or not wanting to move because they have this like amazing rate, what I've been noticing is that they just haven't, and maybe that is the case, maybe they should stay put, but there's a lot of people out there that do want a different property, a bigger property, a smaller property, a rental. They want something else. And once they start running the numbers, they see that they can sell their house. They have this
mhm.
huge down payment now, and their monthly interest rate, the rate might be higher, but their payment is actually not that much different. It's just hard it's hard to get people to let us run the numbers with them just so they can see what the math looks like.
Yeah, and that's always my first stop with people, especially when they say, well, we could sell our house. Well, what are you going to make out of it? Well, we think. I'm just like, call Alice, call a real estate agent, find out what your house is worth, let them do a net sheet for you. And so you can find out what you're going to walk out of there with. And you're right. A lot of times people are pleasantly surprised, they're just focused on the rate or focused on this or that. And they don't even put that part into the equation, that now they have a huge down payment. When they bought their house, they only had 3 or
Huge.
5%. Yeah. So it's probably not a bad, time to be thinking about that. Even if you have to, pay $6,000 or $7,000 to help somebody buy their rate down for a year or two, it's a whole lot cheaper than, a lot of the alternatives, and that might just entice that buyer to come in and buy your house also.
Well, and I'm getting a lot of those phone calls now, just like in the last 8 to 10 days. It's super brand new. So we'll see if the trend becomes a trend.
Yeah.
But right now they're finding houses that they like online, even though they weren't planning on moving. And they're going, if you can get me that house, I will sell mine. And then they can come and talk to you about their down payment and their, if closing costs, or instead of closing costs, it sounds like you're talking about perhaps having buyers discuss with their sellers using that money for buying down their interest rate instead of for closing costs. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we could talk about the 2-1 buy down, but if it makes enough sense to where you're just buying the rate down, period, that might be a more comfortable thing for someone that's a little bit more conservative. It's not going to be quite as low for the first year or two, but year or two goes by fast.
I know people aren't even unpacked a lot of times by 2 years.
I know. It's crazy. So, and then that's why it's just good to come in and have conversations. That's one thing that we're unfortunately losing a little bit since this whole COVID is the one-on-one interactions. And we're still really big on that. I do like people to just kind of throw their information online. So it's not a data entry meeting, but a meeting where we can really get down to what he or she or they or whatever, if goals are. So, it's just there is a variety of different things that we can look at doing, and having those conversations, not just letting some guy from some online lender tell you what he or she thinks is the best thing for you, but really sitting down and having those conversations and having a local lender that's accountable in case we don't close on time. You can come punch me in the nose. And you can't really do that with an
well,
online
you guys
lender.
always close on time, so
We do. We've had for a long time.
Yeah.
Everybody should be closing on time, to be fair. Right
well,
now.
But it is so hard, and I just have to tell people every week when they're in escrow, it might be a few days early. It might be a few days late. We've had some situations where there's been traumatic events at the end. We had an elderly person on a ladder. We always recommend no ladders in older people's lives. Hit the ground, hospitalized, 3-week delay. We were able to close, but
holy moly,
power of attorney had to get roped in. It was, everybody's going to be fine, but those injuries are hard on people. And if you're elderly to start with, oh my gosh, they can be devastating.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's why I always tell them, if you're going to get on a ladder, don't fall on your signing arm, because we could send you over to the hospital.
That's hilarious.
I know. Some people say heartless. I don't know. I've tried.
Oh, well, it's just a joke, people. It's just a joke. But the warning is still the same.
If you need to get on a ladder, call me and I will come do it for you.
Yeah.
I'm semi-old, so there you go.
Yeah, very scary times sometimes. But a lot of times people will hang into those transactions if somebody's injured, or has a stroke or breaks a leg. Gosh, we have everything happen in real estate land, don't we?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if anybody listening on the phone, Beth kind of crept in here at the last minute. She's my business partner, completely fluent in Spanish, and the nicest girl in town. So I don't know how I got so lucky, but
yeah, Beth is awesome. Beth Rodriguez.
Yes.
Is going to be joining us in the next segment. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. The broadcast will be aired again tomorrow on Sunday, 6 p.m. on Radio 880 KCMX. So you can listen to all the great information that Guy Giles and Beth Rodriguez have from Mutual of Omaha. We're also going to be saying thank you to John L. Scott Ashland and Medford for being one of our sponsors. We appreciate you. The local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, ARVAR, and also thank you, Giles, Mutual Omaha Mortgage. We appreciate your support so we can bring you this show every week. We'll be right back after a quick word. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Real Estate Show. We're talking to Giles and Beth Rodriguez, Mutual of Omaha Mortgage. Thank you so much for being back, you guys.
Hey, thanks.
Hello.
So during the break, Beth, we were talking a little bit about having group purchases, more than one buyer, co-signers, stuff like that. Let's talk a little bit about how people can put those together so that somebody gets a house.
Yeah, as far as co-signing, and I think there's really good things about it. There's pros and cons as with anything. And we are seeing a little bit more these days with, interest rates and the housing prices being higher, where we are seeing more families or friends or roommates going in together and, co-signing, or, having the co-signer non-occupant as well. So what it does is obviously it helps bring additional income. So say if you have a grown child adult that needs to purchase but doesn't have quite the income to show there yet, then a lot of times they'll bring a parent on and have that co-signer even though they're not living in the house. So basically that co-signer is just saying that if something were to happen and the mortgage didn't get paid by the main borrower that occupies, that the co-signer would then be responsible for that payment. So the con, I guess, and that could be for that co-signer, it just really depends where they want to be long-term. So if you co-sign on the loan, obviously, if you try to go get a loan for something else, if that payment will get counted as one of your liabilities. Also, I wanted to talk about a lot of people. The biggest issue that I see is they will co-sign on auto loans for children or for friends or girlfriends or boyfriends. We see that a lot. And, that can be hard too, because if they don't have 12 months of payments to show from the, bank account of the person that owns that auto, then that co-signer will also get hit with that liability payment. So that sometimes too can kind of make or break qualifying for a home. So there's a lot of things that go into co-signing. So it's just good, I think, to educate everybody and for people to know and to understand what that means, what happens when they co-sign, and what what that means afterwards when that's done.
So when people are doing these co-sign situations on behalf of somebody, how is that different from just being on the loan as a full buyer?
Yeah, so one, if you have the non-occupant co-signer, they're not living in the home. They're just, co-signing on the loan. And then also if they, we'll see sometimes where they will be the co-signer, but not be on title. So they're just, helping to qualify as a borrower. So there's kind of different ways.
Oh, wow. That's kind of a subtle difference.
That they can be on there. So different options there, just depending on the situation, circumstances.
So, and circumstances are a great lead in. Like, what circumstances are people bringing you so that co-signing and group purchases make it all happen? Are they, like you said, adult, older people with their adult kids? Are they, I don't know, best friends? Do we have any more first-time home buyers, or are these people a little further down the road with their real estate experience?
I would say definitely you see it a lot more in first-time home buyers, and it's usually younger adult children with the parents co-signing for them is what I mostly see and have done. Sometimes it'll be maybe fiance or girlfriend and boyfriend, that kind of scenario too. So I would say those are the most common ones that I have done.
Yeah. And in Oregon, I'm sorry, let me just throw this in real quick, just to remind everybody, in Oregon, we're not a community property state. So we can buy and sell things as married people without the same fuss in other states.
Yeah,
no, that's cool. And I was just going to mention another way we're seeing people step in a little bit is if you have a parent or somebody that's saved a little bit of money, if you have 7, 8%, 10% inflation, that $100,000 you have sitting in that account is now worth $90,000 at the end of the year. So
okay.
you might just step in and help somebody with a down payment, or maybe even help them pay off some of their debt if you wanted to help your kids out or something, if you're going to leave it to them anyway someday. I don't know. It's just kind of a thing you think about. If you got some money sitting around doing absolutely nothing, and even if you try to short term and invest it, you're really not going to have a return, and things are a little scary, and the markets are going up and down a lot right now. So we have had a lot of people stepping in and helping their kids, or helping their parents for that matter, with down payments.
Yeah, and a lot of times those parents already have their homes paid off, they are financially stable, so it works out great for them. It doesn't hinder, purchases that they want to do after, helping to co-sign for their
And it is so beautiful to watch. A lot of the first-time home buyers, regardless of their age, they're nervous, they're stretched. And then frequently partway through their process, somebody will step in, somebody they were not expecting, somebody who may have told them, no, I'm not giving you a dime. And then all of a sudden there's $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 coming people's way, and they actually get the address. And it's harder now, don't you think, than when it was our age, when we first started buying houses? Doesn't it seem that it's harder for people to qualify now?
I guess it depends on when you hit that age.
Well, I'm going back to the 70s.
Yeah,
sorry, 80s.
See, you're not as old as you think you are. I think you just remember back.
Just historically speaking.
Yeah, historically speaking. So, thinking back, like the house I bought up on Hillcrest when I was, in my early 20s, that was only $130,000. I was probably only making $14 an hour, $15 an hour, but I managed to come up with a little bit of a down payment. I mean, it did seem attainable back then, to be honest, but right now it feels like you have to either have a great income or be a couple of you buying the house, not just, and it could be husband and wife, but I'm also seeing a lot more responsible people that I really didn't see before the crash. They were around, but I think that the whole world learned after we had the problem that we had before. Definitely lending learned. Even
financial responsibility is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I guess unless you got student loans. But.
Well, and we should do another show on that, Guy and Beth, because I think navigating through that student debt, you can still get a house, but you got to structure it differently. And here's where maybe having some co-signers helps.
And it does structure. It is different between Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and how they look at it also. So I think that would definitely be something good for us to bring when we come back.
I think so too. Definitely, even with FHA, being a little different. That would be a great segment for sure.
So we're just about out of time. We're talking to Guy Giles and Beth Rodriguez, Mutual Omaha Mortgage. We'll be back again tomorrow on Sunday with a repeat of this broadcast. Somebody wants to get a hold of you, Guy. You got 30 seconds. How do they get you?
Well, call me at 541-944-6987. And my biggest advice about student loans is don't let those clowns talk you into some degree you can't make any money with. Do a little research before you get them.
Don't let the clowns talk you into it, and don't let the feds worry you. Just because the rates went up again this week doesn't mean we can't still make it happen, right?
Absolutely. Correct. It's nothing like it was in the 80s. So.
All right. All right, folks, have a beautiful Southern Oregon weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye now.
Hey, thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.